people started school this week? Y'all do not sound excited. Oh my God. How was that? How's the first day of school? Okay. Do I have any seniors? Yeah! Okay, who goes to Harris County? Yeah! Okay. I mean, y'all are all welcome, but we're going to sing a new song to Wednesday nights. It's called Good Grace. So if we all want to stand on up, I'm going to invite y'all all up to the front so we can all worship together. So we're just going to get started. Strangers, neighbors, our good is one. Children, our generations of every nation, the kingdom come. So don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember our help comes from Jesus, our redemption, our salvation is in His blood. Jesus, light of heaven, forever, His kingdom come. So don't let your heart be trouble. Hold your head up high, don't fear evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. So take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember our help comes from
gathered from before that you don't like the first day of school and the first day of school suck. Well, I agree, and I haven't started my first day of school yet, but I'm also fairly nervous about it. But, through everything that we go through and every, piece of homework and every piece of classwork that we're nervous about, God's got us. And we might feel like we're surrounded by all these things, but, God is surrounding us, and God will fight our battles for us. So this next song we're going to sing is about that. This is how I fight my battles. 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 This is how. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. This is how. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. This is how I fight my battles. Yeah, this is how I fight my battles.
All right, y'all sing a song out with me. All my words fall short. I've got nothing new. How could I express all my gratitude? I could sing these songs as I often do. Every song must end, but you never do. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. I got one response, I got just one move. With my arms stretched wide, I will worship you. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I'm nothing else. this out. Come on, my soul. Oh, come on, my soul. Oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. And oh, come on, my soul. Oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. And oh, come on, my soul. Oh, don't you get shy on me. Lift up your song. 'Cause you got a lion inside of those lungs. Get up and praise the Lord. Get up. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing go to the Lord in prayer, y'all. Dear Lord, thank you so much for bringing us all here tonight. I just hope that you bless this message that Aaron's about to bring for us. I just hope that you really open all of our ears. As we're getting to the end of this new season in life and starting out this new school year, we're going to face a lot more battles than usual. I just hope that you protect this church. I hope that you protect everyone in this room. And I just hope that you're with us all throughout this week. And I just hope you bless the rest of this week for us and keep everyone safe. In Jesus' name, pray. Amen.
All right, amen. Hey, it's so good to see everybody here tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed an awesome worship time. And so we've been in a series called Even If, talking about change the last couple weeks. Last week, Ethan was here and spoke. He did a great job. We had some decisions. And so tonight, I've asked my good friend Aaron, he'll tell you a little bit about himself, but he's on staff here at Cascade Hills. And I've asked him to speak tonight, and he's got an incredible word for you. So I want you to listen up off your phones, unless you're taking notes. Pay attention to what he has to say. And let's give it up. Warm welcome for Aaron. Y'all give it up for him. Come on.
Thank you. All right, can everybody hear me? Yes, I'm seeing some nods. All right, cool. Well, yes, thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for letting me come and speak to you guys. What is that knocking? We're good. Thank you guys for letting me come and speak to you tonight. Also, guys, let's just give it up. You guys have the best high school pastor in the world. Can we just give a round of applause for Pastor Adam? He is absolutely awesome. Now, guys, I would love for this to be much more of a conversation, less of me talking at you and more talking with you. So I'm going to ask you to do something, all right? I'm going to ask you, and I just hope that you say yes. If you guys could you just move forward just a little bit? Everybody just stand up real quick. Yep. And just move forward, closer to me. Just down the rows, yep. Come closer to me, just a little closer, and just fill in the rows closer to me. The reason I'm doing this is because I just want to talk to you guys. There you go, yep, right in the front. Yep. Come on down, and I'll take a handheld with the bumping and everything. Cool. Yep, keep coming. No, closer, closer. Come on, fill the rows, fill the rows, fill the rows, fill the rows. Yep, 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 yep. Yep, perfect. Good, good. Yep, we're getting closer. Yeah, thank you. I'll just set it right here. All right, so you guys you tried, and that was good. You guys committed. I appreciate that. All right, so as we get into it, first of all, so I'm talking to high school, so do we have any freshmen in here? Who's freshmen? Freshmen, freshmen, freshmen. Do we have any sophomores? Who's our sophomores? Sophomores, sophomores, juniors? Juniors, juniors, there you go, yep, juniors. And who's our seniors? Seniors, yeah. Woo, all right, so you guys did your first day of school. You did your first day of school. Are you, one sec, I'm going to make the change to, boom. All right, can you guys hear me better? I think this is a little bit better. All right, thank you, thank you. All right, so we have our seniors in the room. You guys just did your first, was today your first day of school or you've been in school? This is your third day of school. Okay, okay. This is your first day of school. All right, so how's it been? Good? Good, terrible, kind of, okay, terrible. Seniors are probably ready to be out. Freshmen are ready to be seniors, right? Yeah, probably. All right, well, thank you guys again for letting me come and talk to you guys. I know that last week you guys heard from Ethan, and you guys have been in this series about change, this whole What If series about change. And I know that last week what Ethan talked to you guys about was he covered how you react to change when you can't control it, right? Now, this week what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about how to overcome the fear that is associated with change. Does that make sense? How to overcome the fear that is associated with change. So we're just going to dive right in. I will be the first to say, when Pastor Adam asked me to do this series, I'll be the first to say that I hate change. I absolutely hate change. I am scared of it. I've had a lot of fear when it comes to change in my life, but I also am very passionate about this subject because in my life I've also experienced a lot of change, and especially in the last 2 or 3 years, I've experienced quite a bit of change. So let me tell you guys a little bit about that, and then we'll dive more into it. So let me tell you a bit about myself. My name is Aaron. Like Pastor Adam said, I am on staff here at Cascade. I am the administrative assistant, so basically I just help the administrator move the ball at this church. A lot of stuff that is kind of behind the scenes, and it has been awesome. I've been here for about a year now. But like you guys, I was in high school at one point, and as I was going through high school, I graduated, and I stepped into college. And when I was in college, I decided I went to Columbus State for 1 year for my freshman year, and then my sophomore and junior year, I transferred to the University of Georgia, and I studied there. So basically, when I was in school, I was pre-med. I was studying to be a doctor, or so I thought I wanted to be a doctor, but I was studying all biology and everything like that. I was diving super deep into it. Now, towards the end of my sophomore year, I kind of felt like a little weird about being in college. Up until this point, I was like super dedicated. I was all in. I was studying all the time. And then going into my junior year at UGA, I was kind of like, is there something more for me than being in school? And so I started to play around with that idea. I started trying to figure out what that would look like. Now, being in school for so long, right? I was in my 14th year of school at that point. You get so used to being in school that you're afraid of anything that might be a change from school, right? And so as I was looking, I was thinking maybe what else could I do? I stumbled upon something. I felt like God was maybe calling me towards missions, and so I stumbled upon something called the World Race. Now, some of you guys might have heard about the World Race. Some of you guys might not have heard about the World Race, but I'll tell you what it is. Basically, what the World Race is, it's a missions organization that does long-term missions. So basically what it is it's an opportunity for people, whether they're 18 or just graduated high school, all the way to 35 to do long-term missions. So basically, you can do a 3-month trip, you can do a 6-month trip, you can do a 9-month trip, you can do an 11-month trip. I ended up doing the 9-month trip. I decided to do the 9-month trip. I decided that I was going to take a break from college after my junior year of college, and I was going to go and do a 9-month mission trip, and then I was going to go back to college. That was my plan, right? Now, when I decided to go and do the World Race, a lot of change came with that. I knew that the girl that I was dating at the time, I knew that she might not be happy about it, and me and her ended up breaking up because of it. So that was one change. I know, sad, but it's all good. It's all good. Also, I lost a good amount of friends deciding to go on the World Race. I had a lot of friends up in Athens at UGA, and I had to say goodbye to a lot of them. And so I walked through a lot of fear with that change, but I was getting ready to go on this huge adventure, so I was pretty excited about it. And so the beginning of my junior year, I started fundraising for this trip. In 1 year, I was going to leave. So my junior year was August of 2018. The beginning of my junior year was August of 2018, and I was leaving for the World Race in August of 2019. So I had a whole year to plan for this trip. So I planned, I fundraised, I posted about it. I had to get a whole bunch of money for it. I sold T-shirts. I sent out support letters. I even got rid of my car for this trip. So I put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of dedication, a lot of money into this trip. And it was finally time for my training camp. So the World Race in the summer before you leave. So I was leaving in August of 2019. In July of 2019, training camp comes, right? And training camp is just an 11-day training camp, and it's time for everybody to get ready to leave, right? So I got ready to leave, and a week before my training camp, I was at work, and I worked at a place called Callaway Gardens. You guys have probably heard of it. Yes, Callaway, yep, so see some nods. So I worked at Callaway Gardens as a water ski instructor. And so basically what I did is I taught people, whether they're high school students, middle school kids, sometimes like little 2-year-olds, I would teach them how to ski. And the 2-year-olds, you just hold them and smile for the pictures. But we would teach people how to water ski. What we would also do is we would do water ski. Whoa, that was crazy. I thought that was me. What we would also do is we would do water ski shows. So we would do these things called water ski pyramids. Does everybody know what that is? It's pretty self-explanatory. So basically, in the water, we would climb up on each other and do a pyramid, right? And right before my training camp, 5 days before my training camp, we had to do a pyramid, a ski pyramid for the 4th of July, right? 4th of July is huge at Callaway, and so we decided that we were going to do a 6-man pyramid. And for some reason, they asked me to be on the top of the pyramid. They asked me to be on the very top, and I said yes. We'd done it before. I felt pretty confident about it, but we did it. As we're practicing for it, right? This is a week before my training camp, 5 days before. We were practicing for this pyramid. We get up. I'm all the way up at the top, and somebody at the bottom slips, and I'm at the top, and I fall. And now, usually when you fall, when you're water skiing, it's not that big of a deal. You just kind of cover up, and you fall, and you pop your head up in the water, you're good. This time, when I fell, I turned my body, and as I turned my body, the rope that I was holding wrapped around my left arm. So as I was falling, I hit the water, and the rope was just curled around my arm. And so what happened when I hit the water? It pulled me, right? And it really, really, really hurt. I basically destroyed my arm. It was terrible. It was one of the worst days of my whole life. I immediately was rushed to the emergency room. I passed out because of the pain. It was terrible. Now, usually those things don't happen. Usually we would tell people that those things don't happen. So it was a rare occurrence, but I destroyed my arm. And so what's the first thing that pops into my head? The World Race, right? I'm about to leave for the training camp. And so I called him up a couple days later because I just hurt my arm, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my arm is absolutely destroyed. I might have to have surgery. I'm not going to be able to go to this training camp. So I called them up, and I said, hey, I just hurt my arm. Is there any way I can miss training camp and still come on the trip? And they said, no. The only way that you can come on this trip is if you come to training camp. And so I said, all right. And so I called my doctor. I said, can I be cleared for 10 days to go to this training camp? He said, absolutely not. And I said, please. And he said, okay. And so I convinced him, and he did it. He said, okay. He gave me the clearance. I probably shouldn't have been cleared, but he gave me the clearance. So I think we have a picture of it. There I am, getting ready to go to my training camp with my arm in a sling, on all sorts of pain meds. And as you can see, my left, you see my fingers are all swollen and like blown up, and it's because my whole arm was like the size of a balloon going into that training camp, right? And so I hurt my arm. I thought I wasn't going to be able to go, right? And then turns out I got to go to my training camp. So I went to my training camp. It was awesome. I really loved it. Great experience. And then 6 weeks later, after the training camp, we left. Me and my group that were leaving in August of 2019, we left. And we went, our first country was Thailand. And so we went from Atlanta, flew out, and went straight to Thailand. Well, not straight to Thailand, but we finally got to Thailand. Now, when I was in Thailand, I was like, great, the whole arm thing is behind me, don't have to worry about it. And so we began doing our ministry. So 2 months in to being in Thailand, 2 months go by, 8 weeks, and we're just rocking and rolling. And then out of nowhere, my arm starts going numb when I'm in Thailand. And I was like, no, please, no, don't let my arm go numb. And it started going numb, and so I had to go see a doctor. I started losing feeling in my arm. And the World Race people decided that it might be best for me to go home. And so I didn't want to, but I got on a plane, and I went home. And so this trip that I just planned for a year, that I had basically stopped going to college for, this trip that I had fought to go to the training camp, this trip that I had raised so much money for, I got sent home 2 months into it because I had hurt my arm. And so I got back home here, and I was frustrated, and I was angry, but I thought it might be a possibility for me to be able to go back on the trip. And so I did all my rehab, I went to the doctor and everything like that, and eventually, 2 or 3 months later, after me being home, I kind of set my sights off of the world race because I thought it wasn't going to be a possibility for me to go back anymore. Then, one day they called me, and they said, hey, if your arm is better, you can come back. And so I was like, all right. And so I packed all my stuff up again, this time not in a sling. I packed all my stuff up again, and I went back on the world race. And this, I've struggled with a lot of fear with this change. Woo! I struggled with a lot of fear with this change because I knew that I was walking back into something that I wasn't prepared for. So there were all these people that I just spent all this time with that they continued to go on the trip, and I had to go home. So I was really worried about that. So then I finally get to go back after my arm is hurt. I got sent home. I get to go back. I get back, and then I'm there for 4 weeks, and then COVID hits. And then we get sent home again. And so in the span of maybe 7 or 8 months, I literally experienced so many changes. I started thinking I was going on the trip, then I hurt my arm, then I thought I wasn't going to go on the trip, then I actually got to go on the trip, then I got sent home because my arm was going numb, then I went back on the trip, then I got sent home again because of COVID. So it was literally, guys, that was like up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And through all of those ups and downs, guys, I battled a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of anger towards the Lord. And I'm going to finish out my story in a little bit. But through all of that change that I experienced, and as I was thinking about what I was going to be speaking about tonight, through all that change I experienced, I think I could boil down all types of change into these 3 types of change that I experienced. And I think that these types of change that we're about to talk about are changes that I've experienced, whether it was through the World Race or before, and changes that you guys have also experienced. So the first type of change is slow change. So if you're taking notes, write that down. The first type of change is slow change. Now, what is slow change? Slow change is basically just change that we've all encountered, and a lot of times it's change that we don't even know it's happening when it's happening, right? For me, it was as I was going through all the change of going ups and downs through the world race, I didn't exactly know what was going to happen, but it was a slow process, a 7 or 8 month process through all that change. For you guys, it might be from your freshman year to your senior year, right? Like, it's a slow change, and you know it's happening, but it's also a very slow change. Now, the second type of change that we're going to talk about is sudden change. Now, sudden change is literally what it sounds like. It's sudden. You don't expect it. Perfect example of sudden change is me hurting my arm. I wasn't expecting it, but it happened, and so then because of that change, I had to deal with what happened because of it, right? Now, sudden change, for you guys, it could be anything. Anything that you don't expect that changes, that causes something to happen, right? Does that make sense? Now, the third kind of change that I think that we've all experienced is expected change. Now, expected change is kind of like slow change, where you know it's coming, right? Like for me, I knew I was going on the world race, but it was a change that I had to prepare for, right? Does that make sense? So slow change, expected change, and sudden change are the 3 kinds of change that we're going to talk about tonight. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look at how all 3 types of these change happened in the Bible, okay? Now, because I think it's safe to say that when I experienced all those kinds of change, I experienced a lot of fear walking through all those kinds of change. And it might be safe to say that as you guys experience those kinds of changes, there's a lot of fear associated with that as well. Now, what I want to do is I want to look at where those 3 types of change are in the Bible, and if there's any fear with the people that are experiencing it in the Bible. So, does that sound good? Yes? Everybody still with me? Yep. Nods, yep. Okay, so the first kind of change that we're going to look at in the Bible is slow change. And what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the life of David. Now, you guys might know David, you might not know David, but basically David was famous for being a man after God's own heart. And when David was a teenager, he was anointed to be the king. And you would think, okay, great, anointed to be the king, he's going to go rule the land of Israel, and he's just going to be good. He's going to be a great king. But David experienced a lot of change when he was anointed to be the king. So let's look at it. The verse, it's in 1 Samuel 16:13. And this is right when he's anointed to be the king. It says, "So, as David stood there among his brothers, Samuel took the flask of olive oil he had brought and anointed David with the oil. And the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David from that day on. Then Samuel returned to Raham." No, Ramah. You think it's Ramah? Yeah, okay. So, David was anointed to be the king, right? And right after David was anointed to be the king, he faced Goliath. He was banished by Saul. He had to hide in the desert. He lived on the run. He was forced out of the nation, and he fought countless battles. Guys, from the time that David was anointed to be the king to the time he actually became the king, it was 14 years. Can you imagine somebody telling you, all right, I promise you're going to rule, you're going to be the queen, you're going to be the king, but I'm not going to tell you when. And it turns out it's 14 years later. That's crazy. And through that 14 years, I'm sure that David experienced a lot of fear, right? I think that's pretty safe to say. Facing Goliath, being chased by Saul, having to live in the desert. Like, those are actual scary things. And this is a very slow process, right? 14 years is a long time. So he experienced a lot of slow change. And then eventually, he became the king. It says in 2 Samuel 5:3, "So there at Hebron, King David made a covenant before the Lord with all the elders of Israel, and they anointed him king of Israel." David waited, and he waited, and he waited, and he waited, and he waited. And he waited for that change to come. And it was a very slow process, and I'm sure there was a lot of fear through that change, right? So that's slow change. Now, sudden change in the Bible, sudden change. Now, for sudden change, what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be in the book of Matthew. So we're going to be in Matthew 4, verses 18 to 22. So let's look at it really quick. What we're seeing here is Jesus, and this is the beginning of Jesus' ministry. So Jesus has been baptized, and now he's ready to start his ministry. And so what he's doing is he's realizing that he can't do his ministry alone, right? So he needs to go and get disciples to follow him. And so that's what we're seeing right here. So in Matthew 4, verse 18, it says, "One day, as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. Jesus called out to them, 'Come, follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people.' And they left their nets, and they followed him. A little farther up the shore, he saw two other brothers, James and John, sitting in a boat with their father Zebedee, repairing their nets, and he called them to come too." Guys, basically what Jesus is doing is he's enacting sudden change in the disciples, right? So as he's walking around, he's trying to figure out who he wants and who he wants to follow him. He's saying, "Hey, I know that you fish for a living, but I'm going to show you how to fish for men." And so he says, "Stop what you're doing and follow me." And they literally drop everything and they follow him. They literally drop everything and follow him. And that is a perfect example of sudden change. Now, if somebody, a stranger, was walking past you while you were at work and said, "Hey, stop what you're doing. I know that you've been working. I know that you're probably good at what you're working at, but I want you to stop and I want you to follow me. I want you to stop and I want you to follow me." What would you guys say? You say, "You crazy. I'm not following you. I don't even know you." But they trusted Jesus and they said, "Okay, I will make a sudden change. I will leave everything I knew and I will follow you." Okay? So that's a perfect example of sudden change. It is raining. It is raining. Sorry, guys, I get distracted easily. I'm like a squirrel, and it's raining. So, squirrel. All right, so now for expected change in the Bible, all right? So, for the expected change, we're still going to be in the book of Matthew, okay? But we're going to be in Matthew chapter 26. Now, where we are in Jesus' ministry, right? Before, we just saw Jesus start his ministry. He got baptized. He called the disciples. Now, we're at the very end of Jesus' ministry. Now, through the book of Matthew, what we've seen is we've seen him perform miracles. We've seen him tell parables. We've seen him change the lives of so many people, both sick and those who persecuted him and went against him. And what we're seeing here is we're seeing the end of Jesus' ministry. Now, this is the final time that Jesus gets to be alone before he is betrayed, before he's arrested, and before he's put on the cross. This is the final time that he gets to be alone with God. And this is what he says in Matthew 26:39. He says, it says, he went on a little farther and bowed with his face to the ground, praying, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine." Guys, what we're seeing right here is we're seeing Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane bow down before God, and he knows what's to come. Right before this, he predicted that Peter was going to deny him. Right before this, he predicted what was going to happen. He predicted the fact that he was going to get betrayed. And he knows that right after he's done praying this, that he's going to be betrayed and put on the cross. And so he takes a moment and he says, "God, please take this cup of suffering away from me. Take this fear away from me." Guys, even Jesus was afraid as the change was coming, and he expected it, right? He knew that the change was coming, and he was afraid, right? So those are some examples of how we have seen slow change, sudden change, and expected change in the Bible. And all three types of these change have a different kind of fear associated with them, right? I think that's safe to say. We saw David afraid, even though it was slow change. We saw the disciples potentially afraid, even though it was sudden change. And we saw Jesus afraid, even though it was expected change, right? Now, for all of these kinds of change, I think it's safe to say that it's okay to be afraid of change, but the way that we combat the change is by trusting and resting in God's promise. And we'll get more into that in a second, but I want to tell you guys that that's what I had to do. I told you I was going to finish out my story, and that's what I had to do, is I had to trust and rest in God's promise through all three types of those changes. So this is what happened to me, okay? So like I said, I got sent home from the World Race. COVID hit, and I'm sure COVID affected a lot of you guys as well. I can't imagine being a high schooler and being in COVID. Is it terrible? Yeah? Is it terrible? I'm sure it is. Now, COVID affected me too, and I got sent home from the mission field for the second time because of COVID. And I got home, and guys, I was mad. If I'm going to be honest with you, I was mad. I was frustrated, I was sad, and more than anything, I was afraid. I was praying to God, and I was saying, "God, I was trying to follow you. I literally am trying to follow you. And you took me on the mission field, then you took me off on the mission field. Then you put me back on the mission field, then you took me off again. Why? Why?" And guys, I had a choice right then. I could have given into that fear. I could have been angry. I could have been like, "Forget this, not worth it, I'm out." But my prayer in that time was, "God, just use me the way that you want to use me," right? Whether I'm washing dishes or whether I'm on the mission field, Lord, just use me the way that you want to use me. And what happened was is I remained faithful, and the World Race called me up, and they asked me to go and lead a trip with them about a year ago. So August of last year, they wanted me to go to Romania and lead a trip to Romania with a group of guys, right? So I was set to go to Romania. I was getting ready for it, and about last summer, so the summer of 2020, I was getting ready to leave in August for Romania. I was like, okay, maybe this is like the final chance for me to be able to go on the World Race. I'm not necessarily a racer anymore, but now I am leading trips, and I'll take it. And in July, right before I was planning on leaving, I kind of felt like the Lord was kind of shutting it down. Not because of anything that was happening, but because I just kind of felt a little bit of doubt. A little bit of doubt that was kind of in my head. And I was like, why? This is something that I've wanted. This is something that I've been looking forward to. Why is there some doubt in my head? And so right around that time, I got a call from the administrator here at the church. And he called me and he said, "Aaron, I know this is random. I know that you weren't expecting this. But if you'd be willing, will you come in and will you interview to have a position here at the church?" And I was like, sure, I guess I'll come, but I'm planning on leaving pretty soon, so like I'll come and do the interview, but I'm probably not going to take it even if you offer it, right? And so I did the interview, and I did another interview, and I did another interview, and eventually they offered me the job here at the church. And so I was faced with the decision of doing the World Race or taking this job. And guys, I made probably the best decision I could have ever made, and that was taking the job here at the church. Now, if I had given up, and if I had said, "You know what, I'm going to give in to my fear, this absolutely sucks, God, I'm so mad at you, I'm done, I'm walking away," if I had given into that, not only would I not be here talking to you guys tonight, I don't even think I'd be able to talk to you guys about change because I reacted to it the wrong way, right? Now, I think it's safe to say that in all of the things that we've been talking about, whether it's my story, whether it's the story of David, whether it's Jesus' life, or whether it's the disciples, that they were all afraid, right? I was afraid. Now, it's okay to be afraid of change, and we just read about the fact that it's okay to be afraid of change. All of them were afraid, and that's normal. But the way that we get over the fear of overcoming the fear of change, the way that we overcome that fear is by becoming change. Okay, I'm going to say it again. The way that we overcome the fear of change is by becoming change, right? Now, if I had decided that I was going to give in to that fear, the fear of change, the fear of the unknown, if I had decided that I was going to give in to that, I wouldn't be here. Can you imagine where any of us would be if Jesus had said, you know what, I'm going to give in to my fear and I'm not going to accept the change? Now, I'll say it one more time. The way to overcome the fear of change is to become change. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, great, Aaron, okay, that's a cool little saying, but what does that mean? Like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. I get what you're saying, but like, why? So let me explain it. So Jesus is actually the one that teaches us how to become change, how to battle our fear of change, right? Now, who better to learn from than Jesus, because Jesus is the one that we just saw struggled with the fear of change. So who better to learn about how to overcome it than for somebody who went through it, right? So what Jesus says about change, let's look at it really quick. So in Matthew 5:14 through 16, Jesus tells us how to become change. So he tells us not only how to overcome our change, but how to become change ourselves. And what he says here is so, so important. What he says is, you are a light to the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see, so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father. What Jesus is saying here is he's saying, you want to know the way to become change? The way you become change is you be a light in a world that is dark. Okay? You be a light in a world that's dark. So let's look at that really quick. Let's look at what that looks like. I want you guys to be able to see what that looks like, okay? So if you could hit the lights for me, that would be awesome. So this is what we're going to do. I want you guys to see what Jesus is saying. He's saying each one of us is a light in a dark world, right? So if, what I'm going to get you guys to do, get out your phones really quick. Don't get on them, just get them out really quick. Get out your phones. Now, here's what I want you to do, okay? I want you to watch this, all right? This is exactly what Jesus is teaching. He's saying, be a light in a dark world. So, for example, Weldon, right here, Weldon, let's say Weldon is light. Not yet. Let's say Weldon is a light. Weldon, turn your light on, okay? Yep. Now, Weldon is a light, right? Let's say Weldon is doing exactly what Jesus tells him to do. Weldon is a light. Now, Weldon is a light and has a light because he has a relationship with Jesus. Not only does he have a relationship with Jesus, but Weldon is also pursuing a relationship with Jesus. And not only that, but Weldon is inviting others to be a part of that relationship with Jesus. He's inviting others to do the same thing he's doing. Now, guys, watch this. Weldon's light can only reach so far, right? You guys over there, you're not being lit up like the people over here are, right? But when Weldon's light touches the people that are around him, they turn their lights on too. Right? So now their lights are on. And you guys can lift them up, yep. So now their lights are on. And so now their lights are touching the people that are close to them. So you guys, right here in the front row, you guys can turn your lights on, yep. Now the people behind them, you guys can go ahead and turn your lights on your phones too, right? Go ahead and turn your lights on. Now slowly but surely what we're seeing, go ahead and turn your lights on right here in the middle. Yep, right here in the middle. Turn your lights on, yep. Now keep going, keep turning them on with your phone. Now hold them up high when you turn them on. Hold them up high when you turn them on. Hold them up high, yep. Now, guys, look around you. Look around, just really quick. Look to your left, look to your right, look behind you. Now, what we did, listen to this. Listen, this is important. What we just did is we took a dark world and we made it light, right? And it started with one person, but Every single person in here is now a light because one person turned their light on, right? Does that make sense? You guys can go ahead and turn your lights off. Turn them off. Now listen. This is what I want you guys to understand, okay? What Jesus is saying is he's saying the way to overcome the fear that you have when it comes to change is by becoming change. And how do you become change? You become change by being a light, right? But what Jesus also says when he says that is he says, what good is a light? What good is a light if it's covered? Now, I think it's safe to say that if everybody in here is a light, right? We just established that if everybody in here is a light, I think it's safe to say that at times our light is covered, right? I think it's safe to say that at times our light is covered. Now, what covers our light? What covers our light? You know what covers our light? You know what covers our light? Fear. Fear covers our light, okay? Now, each one of us, I think some of you guys might agree with me that you would say, my light is on, but I'm letting fear cover my light. And what I would say to you guys today, for those of you who would agree with me, and for those of you who would seriously agree with me, I would say, do not let fear cover your light. Because you just saw what one light can do, right? You just saw what one light can do. How terrible would it be to let fear stop a room, a world from lighting up, right? So my question to you guys is, for those of you who would say, you know what, I would definitely say that, my light is on, but it's covered. And it's covered because I'm afraid. It's covered because maybe I'm sinning. I'm struggling with a sin. Maybe it's covered because there's some shame in my life that I haven't dealt with. For you guys, I would say, to every person in this room, I would say, is your light shining brightly? And if it's not shining brightly, why is it not shining brightly? Is it because of fear? Is it because of sin? Is it because of shame? And that's only a question that you guys can answer. I'm just here to ask that question. Now, I'm sure that some of you would also agree with me, that you would say, Aaron, I know that you're talking a lot about this light, and I understand that the way to be a light, the way to overcome change is to be a light, right? But I don't even know if my light is on. I don't even know. I wouldn't even say that my light is being covered because I don't even think my light is on, right? I don't even think it's on. Now, to you guys, to those of you who would agree with me and say, you know what, Aaron, I don't even think my light is on, to you guys, I would say it's so easy to turn that light on. It's so much easier than you think it is to turn that light on. The way that you turn this light on is through a relationship with Jesus. Now, okay, I know what you're thinking. Because I've thought it. And I honestly, I just felt you guys think it. You said, great, he's telling me I need a relationship with Jesus again. Ethan told me that last week. Pastor Adam tells me that all the time. He's telling me that again. And what you're thinking is like every time somebody tells me I need a relationship with Jesus, I would tell that person that they don't know what I've done. And you're right. I have no idea what you've done. I don't know what you're struggling with. I don't know how you've sinned. I don't know. I don't know what's stopping you from having a relationship with Jesus. I will say that Pastor Scott Dawson said it this way. He said it about a month ago. He said, the best part about fishing is that you always have to clean the fish. And what he means by that is if God is the fisherman and we're the fish, none of us are clean. None of us are clean. So you're right. I don't know. I have no idea where you guys, what you guys have done. I don't know. But I do know that God knows what you've done, right? I do know that God knows what you've done. And I know that he wants you to turn on your light. And the reason I know that is because God created me and he created you. And he created us in his image. And he created us to be with him forever. But what ended up happening is sin came into this world and it separated us from God. Our sinful nature cannot be in the presence of a holy God. And so what God did to reconcile that separation is he brought his son, Jesus, onto this earth. All man, all God, onto this earth so that we could be saved because we deserved to be on the cross. We deserve to be on the cross for our sin. But you know what God did? He sent Jesus to take that place on the cross. Jesus' blood washes us clean of our sin. It washes us clean of our sin. He shed that blood to wash us clean of our sin. He shed that blood so that we could go from this to this. okay? Now, a relationship with Jesus, it's that easy. You go from this to this, just like that. There's no dim light, there's no off light. All you can do by accepting a relationship with Jesus is turn your light on. So if there's somebody in here that would say, you know what, my light is off. If I'm being completely honest with you, my light is off. My light is off because of fear. My light is off because of the shame that I felt. My light is off because I've spent so much time trying to impress the people that I'm sitting next to, and I should be, and I want to be, impressing God. Now, if you would agree with me, and you would say, you know what, Aaron, I do think my light is off. I'm going to show you guys how to turn that on. And like I just said, it's through a relationship with Jesus. I'm going to show you guys how you can have a relationship with Jesus. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead you guys in a prayer to do that. So if you guys could bow your heads and close your eyes. Now, guys, before we pray, I want to let you guys know that this is a prayer between you and God. This isn't a prayer for your neighbor. This isn't a prayer for me. This isn't a prayer for your parents. This isn't a prayer for Pastor Adam. This is a prayer between you and God. This is a prayer because what you're saying is you're saying, my light has been off for so long, and I'm ready for my light to be on. I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want to sin anymore. I don't want to feel shame anymore. So with every head bowed and every eye closed, I'm going to lead you guys in a prayer of how you can accept a relationship with Jesus. Lord, I just thank you for these high school students right now. I thank you, God, just for the word that you've given me, Lord. Guys, if you want a relationship with Jesus, repeat this prayer with me. Just in your heart, only God can hear you. This is between you and God. Say, God, I know that I'm a sinner, and I know that I cannot save myself. I realize, God, what you did. You sent your son to die for me. I confess my sins right now to you, God. Jesus, I ask that you come into my heart. I pray to have a relationship with you, God. Give me a relationship with you. To the best way I know how, God, I will pursue a relationship with you. From this day all the way until my last day, I accept you in my heart, and I ask that you come into my heart and have a relationship with me. Thank you for everything you've done for me. Thank you. Thank you for turning on my light. Now, with every head bowed and every eye closed, this is between you and God. This isn't for your neighbor. If you just prayed that prayer with me tonight, would you guys just raise your hand? All I'm asking is that you raise your hand. Raise your hand. That's all I'm asking. I see your hand. Keep them up. I see your hand. I see your hand. I see your hand. I see it. I see your hand. I see your hand. I see your hand. This is your last chance. If you prayed that prayer, raise your hand. Lord, I thank you for those who raised their hand tonight, God. I pray that you be with them, that as they pursue a relationship with them, that you would just remain faithful with that, God, that your hand would be over them. I thank you, God, just for the rejoicing that's going on in heaven right now. Now, what I'm going to ask you guys to do, with every head bowed and every eye closed still, what I'm going to ask you guys to do, for those of you that raised your hand, in a moment, what we're going to do is we're going to stand up and we're going to start singing. And if you raised your hand, what I would ask you to do is I would ask you to overcome that fear, and I would ask you to come forward to somebody that's at the end of one of these aisles, okay? Now, the reason that I'm asking you to come forward is not to embarrass you. It's not to make fun of you. In fact, when you come forward, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clap, and everybody else is going to clap. The reason that we ask you to come forward is because everybody that Jesus called, he called openly and publicly. What you're doing, guys, when you come forward, not just raising your hand, but when you come forward, what you're saying is, I don't want to be afraid anymore. I want my light to be on, and I want to accept publicly that I have a relationship with Jesus now. I want to accept that publicly. And so in a moment, what we're going to do, the band is going to start singing. And if you raise your hand, I want you to come forward. Now, if you feel nervous about it, ask your neighbor to come with you. And I promise you, they will come with you. So on the count of 3, what we're going to do is we're going to stand up. And if you prayed that prayer, and if you raised your hand, I ask that you come forward. You ready? 1, 2, 3. If you prayed the prayer,
So
come
I
forward.
throw up my hands and praise you again and
Guys, if you
again.
raise your hand, come forward.
'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah.
Keep coming. Ask your neighbor.
And I know
coming.
it's not much, but I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah. So I throw up my hands and praise you again and again. 'Cause all that I have is a hallelujah, hallelujah. And I know it's not much, but I'm nothing else fit for a king, except for a heart singing hallelujah, hallelujah.
You guys can have a seat. Can we just give a round of applause? That was awesome. That was awesome. Yep, I love it. All right, so I'm going to just pray for you guys real quick before I get out of here. I want to say thank you again for having me, and thank you, Pastor Adam, for having me. I really enjoyed it. So let's just pray really quick. Lord, I thank you for these high school students, God. I thank you for the lives changed here tonight, Lord. I pray, God, that if anybody in here raised their hand and didn't come forward, or if they prayed that prayer and didn't raise their hand, God, I pray that you would just work in their heart, God, and be with them right now, Jesus, and tell them what it is that they need to do. Lord, I pray that you be with every high school student throughout the week. I pray that you bless them as they're getting ready and walking into a new season and a new grade. Be with them, God, and let them have eyes to see you and ears to hear you, God. Thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right. Hey, let's give it up for Aaron. Come on. Thank you so much, Aaron. We appreciate you, man. What a great word. He's talking about change and the fear of change. And I tell you what, some students tonight, their lives are forever changed, all right? Their eternity is forever changed. So that is amazing. And we're so glad you're here tonight to witness it and be a part of it. Students, I want you to know that, guys, we love you and we're praying for you. We're praying that you'll be a change agent in your schools. Think about how many students that you are around, how many students that you know at all the schools in the surrounding area, some 15 to 17 schools. You have the opportunity to be the change, to shine your light for God no matter where you're at. So I want to encourage you to do that. And listen, we hope you're here next week for the last week of, we got music playing. We hope you're here for the last week of our series, Even If. And then August the 25th, it is our back to school bash. Come on, who's ready for a back to school bash? All right, it's going to be down at the park. There's going to be, I think, about 150 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. First come, first serve. There'll be pizza there. We're going to have knocker ball. We're going to have games. We're going to have water slides. We're going to have obstacle course. We're going to have a lot of time, and this is a perfect opportunity for you to invite some of your unchurched friends to come and hang out with us. 6:30 to 8:30 at the park. That is August 25th. Not next week, but the 25th, okay? So make sure, hey, if you see it posted on Instagram, share it, tag somebody, help us get the word out, all right? Well, listen, we love you guys. At this moment, we're going to dismiss the small groups. Hang on just a second. So if you happen to pray that prayer, but you did not come forward, make sure to tell your small group leader. Tell someone so we can know and we can give you some information, all right? So let me have all seniors. You guys dismiss the small group.